balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. And my Rumblers have, and I'm calling, I mean, they're, you know, the Whiskey Warrior P1s of the Rumble stream. They apparently are having trouble passing or connecting outside of here because they haven't been properly introduced. Also, somebody wants to see 3 Chevy actually do the can. That's yeah, I'd like to see him do it too. Without being drunk. Anyway. Oh, if we ever get together, boy, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be, it'll be off the hook. Anyway, sorry. All right, let's get started. Oh my gosh. Anyway. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led for us by Coco, Cam, and Sean. Now, for those who are new to the program, Sean is normally a nonverbal autistic gentleman. However, he gets so excited with the Pledge of Allegiance that he just has to join in. So that's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear Sean in the beginning, Sean in the end, and Sean in the middle. Trust me. All right, folks, let's go ahead and do this. If you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat, and if you're wearing one, like me, and place your hand over your heart and join in with Coco, Cam, and Sean as they recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and I thank you, Coco, Cam, and Sean for sending us that wonderful Pledge of Allegiance. One of these days, I'm going to have to go and meet Sean. Anyway, if you would like to hear your version and rendition of the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style, and then taking that file, whether it's an audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and attach that to an email. Send it off to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. And speaking of that email address, if you have a pet of the week, I'm going to need it for Wednesday night. So pet of the week, Wednesday night. If you want one, we got to get them in. Get them in. Send it into fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. Also, too, don't forget question of the week for Saturday's segment. You got a week. I'm trying to give you a heads up here. You got a week to get it in. There, too. Fans at americanperspective.online. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about... there it is. True Grit Roots Network. We have got some stuff coming out. Now, I can't tell you what it's all about, but we have got some fantastic things coming up in the very near term. And I can't talk to you about them right now, but that's okay. Trust me. The announcements will be coming soon. Let me tell you, though, about our channel. Our signature channel, Walter Trout, Blues Rock Radio, and one of the shows that airs on Walter Trout, Blues Rock Radio, which is the Mighty Mouth Blues. Mighty Mouth Blues is exclusively at TGRN, which is True Grit Roots Network, hosted and produced by multi-award winner Jonathan Oogie Richards, Mighty Mouth Blues brings the hottest mix of blues and old school hits, along with interviews with artists and blues newsmakers, shaping today's blues from all parts of the world. Now, Mighty Mouth Blues airs 2 times during the day on Tuesday, 2 p.m. Central Time, and again at 8 p.m. Central Time. So right after I finish, Mighty Mouth Blues is on TGRN. So go and check it out. Mighty Mouth Blues, again, airs Tuesday, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. Central Time. It's Mighty Mouth Blues Day, Tuesdays on True Grit Roots Network. Our home, tgrn.net, is where you can listen direct through your browser. Or if you go to tgrn.net, you can download our app from either the iOS or the Google Play stores. Or if you already have the Live 365, Odyssey, AUDACY, or the iHeartRadio apps, you can find Walter Trout Blues Radio in their catalog of digital radio stations and listen through an app that you already have on your phone. Go to tgrn.net, check out all of the things that we've got going on over there. And of course, keep your ear to the ground. We've got some news coming. I'm telling you, it's going to be great. tgrn.net is our place on the web. True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. All right. Where am I? Oh, I know where I am. Okay. So today is President's Day. Happy President's Day to everybody. Anyone who had it off because it is a national holiday. I, of course, didn't. Because that's just the way, that's just the way things roll around here. But anyway, I was going to put the Betsy Ross flag up, and it started raining here late last night. And because of the fact that my current flag that's up on the pole, with a light on it, by the way, it had a light on it, because you can't fly the flag at night without a light on it. I mean, that's all part of, the etiquette of flying the flag. But anyway, because it was raining, I decided not to put out the Betsy Ross, because the Betsy Ross is still dry, still folded up and hanging out. So I didn't put it out, but assure you, there was a flag flying on my pole for President's Day. But I thought, and actually, believe it or not, the Daily Wire's, one of the Daily Wire's headlines is one of the ones that kind of kicked off the title to tonight's show, because they basically, well, I might as well go ahead and show you. They basically, I sort of stole it. I'll admit, I stole it. Daily Wire put out an analysis on the President's Day scorecard. How's Trump stacking up to his predecessors? Well, according to the subtitle here, he's leading the pack on executive orders, cabinet members, and outperforming his past approval ratings. Now, I can tell you, he is outperforming his past approval ratings. I got something on that here in a little bit, where Hakeem Jeffries was stumped by some of the ratings that are coming out about President Trump. But anyway, so Trump is closing in on 1 month on the job. His administration, believe me, if you are in any kind of place where, and I've said this multiple times on the program, I mean, he is going at a breakneck speed. He's going so fast that the news cycle can't even get rid of one story before it picks up the next. There's stories that are actually even falling through the cracks. And I can't cover it all, but it's amazing in terms of how fast he's going and what he is doing. So, Daily Wire went through and took a look, and in executive orders, he is winning. So far, during his second term, Trump has signed 68 executive orders, far more than any other president in recent history. Right here. By this time in his first term, he had only signed a dozen. So this just tells you how much more aggressive he's being, how much more he's pushing to get things done. And apparently they've listened. I mean, the Trump team has listened to certain political pundits that are out there, such as, you know, Dan Bongino and so on and so forth, where they only really have a short period of time in order to get all of the things that they want put out there in front of the American people, and to get them passed, not only in Congress, but also to get them through all of these other things that, you know, the lawfare and everything else that's going on. Okay. I know a lot of people are like, well, wait a minute. How has he only got a short period of time? Again, it goes back to the same thing that I've been telling you ever since Trump got in. Yes, he has 4 years of an executive. Okay. However, there is a thing called the midterms. And although the early signs are showing that the midterms are not necessarily going to be as bad as what we think, the early signs are exactly that. They're early. Okay. Early. And so we can't depend on that. We can't depend on the fact that in, 2026, we don't lose either the House or the Senate. We can't depend on that until we get a lot closer. And so the fact of the matter is that Trump's got to push harder and faster than he's ever done before. The same thing with the other Republicans, the Freedom Caucus Republicans, all of the Republicans that are trying to make our lives, the American lives, better. Okay, we have to get things done quickly. We have to push them through. And so that's what's going on as far as that goes. So Joe Biden had signed 32 executive orders by President's Day in his term, some on racial equity, requiring of COVID face mask. Barack Obama had signed 14. George W. Bush had signed 7, Bill Clinton 6, and Ronald Reagan 5. And that sort of rounds out up until the early, the late 70s, 1980, obviously. So he's done stuff like, taking aim at gender ideology, banning federal funding for transgender drugs and procedures for children, prohibiting public schools from promoting gender ideology, allowing men on women's sports teams or in the bathrooms and locker rooms. He took an axe to diversity, education, and inclusion policies. He's taken slew of actions against illegal immigration, sending troops to the border, launching massive deportation operation, ordering border wall construction, took action to end the weaponization of the federal government and to cut regulations. Yeah. He's doing a lot of stuff. So his cabinet nominees also he's winning on. Okay. He's also winning on the cabinet nominees. So 16 out of 22 have been confirmed so far. By this time in Trump's first term, he only had 9 nominees confirmed. Now, I just want to point this out to you. And this is, this is a comparison mostly between Trump's first term, where he was blocked at almost every turn with a Democrat-controlled Senate and House. I think both were controlled at the time. Or something along those lines. But anyway, the point being is that so many people were against him in his first term. Even Republicans were against him. They had all the never-Trumpers. And now he's getting things done much faster, at a much faster rate, and he's able to get what he was looking for. Could you just imagine what would have happened if his first term had been run like this term is so far? I mean, just imagine what would have happened. Anyway, Trump's got 16 out of 22 nominees confirmed. Biden only had 6 confirmed at this point. Obama had 11. Bush had 14. Clinton had all but 1 of his 14 confirmed. And Reagan, of course, had all 13 of his nominees confirmed. And of course, we've got to mention that last Thursday, Trump was able to get Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his most controversial pick to date. Well, Kash Patel, I think, is up there as well. We'll see what happens with Kash. His job approval. Well, it's better than last time. Trump's approval rating currently sits apparently at 48.8 as of today, higher than the 40% he had scored at this point in his first term, but below where recent Democrat presidents have been. Biden, unfortunately, was at 54.8 at this point in his presidency, as he enjoyed a brief honeymoon period while Americans hoped that he would quickly end the pandemic. His approval rating started plummeting that summer just before the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, and it never recovered after that. At one point, it dipped down below 36%. Obama's approval rating was 62% by this time in his first term. George W. Bush was at 57%, Bill Clinton at 51%, and Ronald Reagan rounding it out at 55%. Well, Donald Trump has also taken a forceful approach to bring home Americans detained abroad. He's secured the release, his administration, has secured the release of at least 12 hostages held by Hamas terrorists, the Taliban, Russia, Venezuela, and Belarus. The administration is currently working closely with Israel to free hostages in Gaza, which another person, one or two, I think, was released over the weekend. Biden said last year that he had secured the release of more than 70 hostages over his entire 4 years in office. Trump's also begun negotiations with Russia and Ukraine to end the decades-long war that accelerated when Russia invaded Ukraine a year after Biden took office. I got something on that here in a little bit. He's already hosted 3 foreign leaders at the White House. Biden did not have a foreign leader at the White House until April, where he hosted the Japanese prime minister. So Trump is moving faster than Biden certainly was. And Trump was the first sitting president to attend the Super Bowl. He also, this past weekend, went to, I believe it was the Daytona 500. And you know, I mean, let's be honest, like Dan Bongino mentions, politics is all about snapshots and sound bites. Nobody pays attention really much outside of, a few of us. Okay. But yeah, sorry, I got distracted. Nana distracted me with this. FYI, bourbon drinkers, found out today that Buffalo Trace should start being easier to find. And she apparently scored 2 bottles today. It's easy how quickly you can distract me with bourbon. Or any kind of whiskey. Well, I won't say any kind of whiskey because Scotch is technically whiskey. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, I don't know if anybody caught the photo of him, of Air Force One flying over the field as it came to land nearby. I mean, it's those majestic kinds of images that when you're a marketing professional, which, I mean, let's be honest, just about everybody nowadays, including myself, has a brand. I mean, the brand is that you have certain things that belong to you. For an example, this hat that I wear, it's part of my brand. Just the fact that I drink whiskey every once in a while, and I'm called whiskey by some people too, hearkening back to the Whiskey Musings show that this spawned from. That was, it's all part of my brand. The fact that I wear American apparel, American themed apparel on my show is all part of my brand. And Donald Trump knows that probably better than just about anybody else within this political sphere. I mean, why do you think he put his name on so many different things? All of his hotels, Trump hotels, you know, the Trump golf course. His name is his brand. But he also knows the benefit of doing things that are inspiring. And one of those things, of course, was to fly Air Force One and to, you know, fly it as he was coming into Daytona, and people got pictures of it, and it was just amazing. The fact that he drove the limousine around the track, that was, again, another brand kind of thing. And so that's, again, that's what Donald Trump knows. He knows that the snapshots and the sound bites, you know, the sound bite, which everybody will remember, the entire debate against Hillary Clinton, the one thing that came out of it was when she was talking about, you know, being, I don't even remember what she was talking about, but he basically said that if he got elected, you'd be in jail. You know, that particular line, you'd be in jail. Said it quick, bam, and it won. Nobody remembers the rest of that debate except for that line. Everybody knows about that line. So yeah, Donald Trump knows the effectiveness of branding. So, yeah. So anyway, well, that of course doesn't stop the left. I wish it did, but that doesn't stop the left from doing stupid things. This next article is from my home state, which is filled with lunatic leftists. Absolutely filled, especially in our politics. This is also from the Daily Wire. So I don't know if anybody knows about the state flag. I'm kind of articulating this for the audio portion of the program, the audio listeners. But the Washington state flag has what is essentially the seal of the state of Washington on it in the middle of a green field. And in the middle of that seal is a likeness of the founding father, George Washington, who the state is named after. Okay. Now, the state itself was admitted into the Union in 1889. And the thing about it is that the Washington state flag, according to the state constitution, must have the state seal on it by its law. Well, now, apparently, Washington state Democrats want to remove George Washington's image from the state flag. Yeah. Our state's the only state out of the Union that's named for one of the founding fathers. Our state's the only state out of the Union that apparently, you know, can't have that image on its flag, according to them. So there was a blogger apparently who kind of discussed this, and he or she, I don't know, they made the comment that the Washington state flag is deeply and historically bad, and we should change it. That's what he said. Really? So it was designed, the state seal was designed in 1889 when we achieved statehood, and the state law, like I said, declares the official flag of the state of Washington shall be of dark green silk or bunting and shall bear in its center a reproduction of the seal of the state of Washington. Embroidered, imprinted, painted, stamped, whatever. That flag was officially adopted March 5th, 1923. Well, a couple of state reps, Strom Peterson, Julia Reed, and Greg Nance, introduced House Bill 1938, which states that while George Washington is an important national figure, he has limited historical connection to the state itself. This makes him less meaningful as a symbol for the state. He's just named after it, the state's just named after him. So that's the historical connection, morons. Anyway, so if this House Bill 1938 is enacted, the Washington State Flag Redesign Committee will work on adopting a new design with a deadline of July 1st of 2028. The proposed design will then be submitted to voters for approval in a general election, ensuring that any change to the state flag reflects the will of the Washington citizens. I don't think that's going to happen. Because there have been, and the reason why I say that is because there have been several bills that have been put forth, several initiatives that have been put forth that have overturned, because here in the state of Washington, we have what's called the initiative process. If our state legislature, does something that the voters don't get a chance to vote on, we can petition and get a initiative put together should we gain enough signatures to put on the ballot something to overturn it. Well, many, many times in the past, we have done that. And we've also, the state voters have also voted no on certain things. For an example, the state voters said no to building a brand new stadium for the Seattle Mariners. That got overturned by the state legislature. So yeah, that's an example. That's just one of many. The state voted for $30 car tabs, meaning that our tabs, which basically it's a tax. So every year we have to put on a new tab on our car. And the state, the voters, voted for $30 car tabs. Got overturned. I don't think I've ever seen a $30 car tab in this state, even after the initiative went to the voters and got passed. So this legislature, the state legislature, has a habit of just ignoring the will of the voters when they want to. So this comment about them saying that, yeah, it's going to, the voters are going to have the opportunity to do something about this. Yeah, no, they're not. I'm fairly certain they won't. Anyway, God, these people. They're morons. They're just morons. They're morons. All right. Well, Tom Homan celebrated President's Day, and he put out a statistic that apparently puts the Biden admin to shame. So this is also in the Daily Wire too. He revealed the statistic that indicates that the United States is successfully cracking down on illegal crossings in a way not seen in decades. He posted on X on Monday, in the last 24 hours, the U.S. Border Patrol has encountered a total of 229 aliens across the entire southwest border. That is down from a high of over 11,000 a day under President Joe Biden. He says, he continues here and he says, I started as a Border Patrol agent in 1984, and I don't remember the numbers ever being that low. President Trump promised a secure border, and he is delivering. And yes, Ms. T of Texas, that is exactly what it is. So she says, is the car tab like a sticker showing that you paid your car tax for the year? Yep, pretty much. So, anyway, so journalists and other elected officials and others reacted to Holman's post on X. Fox correspondent Bill Melugin said, and by the way, Bill Melugin has covered the immigration issue over the years, said that 229 across the entire southern border, just wild. I would have trouble finding any illegal aliens if I went down to the border right now. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said those results are astounding. It's great to have a real border czar and a president who enforces immigration laws. Blaze correspondent Julio Rosas referred to the Rio Grande Valley sector. The first time I was in the RGV, I saw almost 300 illegal immigrants in a few hours in one area. Then it jumped to over 500 illegals at one time. There's a lot left to do with border security immigration, but these numbers are a huge victory for the Trump administration. Georgia Republican Governor Brian Kemp said for 4 years, Joe Biden let chaos rule at the border, ignored GOP governors who demanded action, and made every excuse under the sun. I'm glad we now have an administration that's focused on protecting our country. Yep. So there we go. There's a few others in here, but, basically just pointing out Donald Trump's wins on President's Day. All right. Well, obviously, they're, the Sunday shows. They always have people on, the pundits on, politicals, those kinds of, J.D. Vance has been on the Sunday shows quite a bit. But in this particular case, Margaret Brennan, oh, God, I tell you, these people are sometimes extremely stupid. But anyway, Marco Rubio went and left CBS News' Margaret Brennan speechless for a comment that she made. Oh my gosh. You guys have got to hear this. This is bizarre, totally bizarre. So let's go ahead and listen in. This is from Face the Nation on CBS.
And so I think if anyone's angry about his word, they don't have to agree with him, but to be angry about it, I think actually makes his point. I thought it was actually a pretty historic speech, whether you agree with him or not. I think the valid points he's making to Europe is we are concerned that the true values that we share, the values that bind us together with Europe, are things like free speech and democracy and our shared history in winning 2 world wars and defeating Soviet communism and the like.
Okay, really quick, he's discussing J.D. Vance's speech that he did at NATO, I think it was, and in reference in particular to the Germans. And he, Vance said a couple of things about Germany. And so that's kind of what this is going over. So Marco Rubio's just summing up his thoughts on J.D. Vance's speech. So here we go. We'll go back to him.
Like, these are the values that we shared in common. And in that Cold War, we fought against things like censorship and oppression and so forth. And when you see backsliding and you raise that, that's a very valid concern. We can't tell them how to run their countries. He simply expressed in a speech his view of it, which a lot of people, frankly, share. And I thought he said a lot of things in that speech that needed to be said. And honestly, I don't know why anybody would be upset about it. People are allowed, you don't have to agree with someone's speech. I happen to agree with a lot of what he said, but you don't have to agree with someone's speech to at least appreciate the fact they have a right to say it, and that you should listen to it and see whether those criticisms are valid. I assure you, the United States has come under withering criticism on many occasions from many leaders in Europe, and we don't go around throwing temper tantrums about it.
Well, he was standing in a country where free speech was weaponized to conduct a genocide. And he met with the head of a political party that has far-right views and some historic ties to extreme groups. The context of that was changing the tone of it. And you know that the censorship was specifically about the right.
No, I have to disagree with you. Free speech was not used to conduct a genocide. The genocide was conducted by an authoritarian Nazi regime that happened to also be genocidal because they hated Jews and they hated minorities and they hated those that they had a list of people they hated, but primarily the Jews. There was no free speech in Nazi Germany. There was none. There was also no opposition in Nazi Germany. They were a sole and only party that governed that country. So that's not an accurate reflection of history. I also think it's wrong. Again, I go back to the point of his speech. Okay, the point of his speech was basically that there is an erosion in free speech and intolerance for opposing points of view within Europe, and that's of concern because that is eroding. That's not an erosion of your military capabilities. That's not an erosion of your economic standing. That's an erosion of the actual values that bind us together in this transatlantic union that everybody talks about. And I think allies and friends and partners that have worked together now for 80 years should be able to speak frankly to one another in open forums. Without being offended, insulted, or upset. And I spoke to foreign ministers from multiple countries throughout Europe. Many of them probably didn't like the speech or didn't agree with it, but they were continuing to engage with us on all sorts of issues that unite us. So again, at the end of the day, I think that people give that is a forum in which you're supposed to be inviting people to give speeches, not basically a chorus where everyone is saying the exact same thing. That's not always going to be the case when it's a collection of democracies where leaders have the right and the privilege to speak their minds in forums such as these.
Mr. Secretary, I'm told that we are out of time.
So did she honestly, I mean, everybody heard her talking about how the Nazis, according to her, were able to come to power because of free speech, and that the Holocaust done by the Nazis was because of free speech. I mean, where the hell do these people get this stuff from? Oh my gosh. Does she not remember? Does she not remember how the Jewish people in Germany had to wear yellow stars to identify themselves based on the Nazis forcing them to do that? Does she not remember the fact that the Nazis burnt books because of speech, that the books contained ideas and thought processes and things like that? Where do they get these people? I just, Well, I mean, let's face it, this is CBS. So it's a mainstream media outlet that is just absolutely horrible. Anyway, anyway, oh God, I can't do it. Anyway, speaking of morons, here's another moron. This one who is supposed to be the head of the Democrat Party in the House. This is Hakeem Jeffries. Oh, if you've ever listened to him speak, oh my gosh, he's just, he's like, there's nothing up there. There's nothing holding his skull together up there. Anyway, he apparently was on an ABC news segment. Eggs, that's coming up next. He was during an ABC news segment. Anchor John Carl confronted House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries with polling data showing strong public support for several Trump-aligned policies. So Carl asked Jeffries whether there has been any Trump initiatives he supported. And Jeffries, being the Democrat moron leftist lunatic that he is, avoided saying a direct answer. Instead, he kind of alluded to the fact that the discussion was just at the beginning. However, there was a recent Marquette University poll that Carl highlighted several key policies that are what most people would consider 80%, 80-20, what you would consider an 80-20 situation. And I'll explain what that is in just a minute. For an example, according to that poll, 63% support the federal government recognizing only two sexes. 60% favor deporting immigrants who have entered the U.S. illegally. 60% support expanding oil and gas production. And 59% favored declaring an emergency at the federal border. So all of these policies, by the way, are key and central and have been, like we just talked about, to the Trump administration. Every single one of them. And Carl pointed that out to Jeffries, and he says Donald Trump's favorability rating is actually higher than it ever was the first time around. And then, of course, he talks about that, and Hakeem Jeffries deflected, offering vague responses, and suggested that Democrats had yet to fully engage in discussions on these issues. They have nowhere to go. They have no place to go. Donald Trump has taken what is essentially kitchen table issues and has taken those issues, and again, they're like the 70-30 rule, the 80-20 rule, whatever you want to call it. The vast majority of people support these issues, support these initiatives. The vast majority of people, Americans, both sides of the aisle, Americans support all of this. And Donald Trump has taken those items and fashioned it into a platform, which is why his approval rating is playing around in the 50 percentile range. Now, depending upon which poll you look at, it could be as high as 55% right now and somewhere around 40 to 45% in others. But this is why Donald Trump is popular right now. This is why Donald Trump won. And I always laugh, too, about all of the posts on X and the rest of the socials where they're all sitting there and they're all saying, hey, for all of you people who voted for Trump, did you vote for Elon too? The answer to that is absolutely. He made it clear. See, unlike the Democrats who say one thing and do another, or who try to obfuscate what they actually are attempting to do, Donald Trump was clear. He said, I'm going to hire Elon Musk to go in, create the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and I'm going to hire him to go in and he's going to root out all of the things that we don't want. And yeah, it's just these people. Yeah, we voted for him. That's the whole point. We voted for him because we are tired of you morons sitting there and talking about all of these wonderful programs and never telling us where the money's coming from, where the money's going, and driving us into essentially a deep debt. $36 trillion and climbing in terms of a debt. That all has to get paid, and the only people who can pay it are the backs of the American taxpayers. And we got tired of it. And so now what ends up happening, which just like you do with your own budget, okay? If you have any kind of sense whatsoever in terms of how to handle money, and you have a limited income stream, that income stream doesn't vary. It doesn't go up. It doesn't go down. It stays the same. So either one of two things have to happen. One, you have to cut spending. Or two, you have to raise increase your revenue. And actually, I'll even go so far as to say three, which is do both. And that is exactly where Trump is going. He is planning on doing both. He's going to lower the taxes for the American taxpayer and fund government in different ways such that the revenues will climb and skyrocket and soar like they always do whenever you cut taxes and cut regulations. when you open up the engine, it's kind of like the engine called capitalism. It's kind of like taking a very strong moonshine whiskey and pouring it into the engine, buddy. And that's what Donald Trump is looking to do. Well, the left keeps pushing and pushing, and they keep saying, oh, you know, Donald Trump is failing. They can't say that he's failing because he's not. He's winning. He's winning in almost every single aspect that he's done so far. But the one thing that they keep pointing to, which is irritating the heck out of it, okay, is egg prices. They keep talking about egg prices and how egg prices have not gone down and egg prices are going up. Egg prices, oh, that's an indication of inflation. Except there's only one problem. There's only one problem with it. And this is it, right here in the Epic Times. Egg prices hit new highs as flocks wiped out over the virus, the bird flu. So since the avian influenza bird flu outbreak began, the nation's top 3 egg-producing states, that's Iowa, Ohio, and Indiana, have lost more than 55 million birds. Now let me explain something to you. Eggs come from a chicken. That chicken has a certain period of time in which it can lay eggs until it gets too old. Okay. However, it lays eggs generally on a daily basis. So you can get probably a good, I'm just going to throw a number out there, you know, somewhere in the hundreds of eggs from a single chicken. However, when you go and you kill off that chicken, now you have hundreds of eggs that are no longer going to be able to be sold. And so what ends up happening? Well, the laws of supply and demand come into effect. You know, that Econ 101 stuff that you learned, maybe if you were lucky to have gone to school when they actually taught this stuff. But when you don't have a lot of supply, and you have a high demand, well, now an individual maker or manufacturer, meaning farmer, owner of chickens, can charge more for those eggs because more people are wanting them and you don't have as many. Okay? Now, according to this piece here, egg prices in the United States have never been higher. They likely will drop back down to a more typical level, but no one can say exactly when. Various experts who spoke with the Epic Times said the average price a consumer paid for a dozen eggs rose to more than $7 per dozen in early February. Americans in some regions are paying more than $8 a dozen, a record high. Experts said this high price for a staple good was the result of a prolonged outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza, HPA1, which has resulted in the decimation of America's chicken flocks over the past 2 years, as well as other inflationary factors. So, according to the January 2025 Consumer Price Index data published by the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the price of eggs rose by 53% between January of 2024 and January of 2025, and by 15.2% in January alone. Now, there is a bunch of agricultural economists who spoke with the Epic Times and said that there isn't a shortage of eggs, meaning that there are enough eggs to satisfy national demand. Nevertheless, consumers are likely to pay surcharges at restaurants, see substitutions and price increases in goods that use eggs, facing buying limits at their grocers and maybe even see empty store shelves. So basically what's happening is, of course, demand is beginning to outstrip the current supply. And the unpredictable HPA-1 outbreaks continue to impede efforts to rebuild the flock of egg-laying hens. So, yeah. Let's see. So you can go and read the rest of the article. There's a bunch of information regarding stuff with it. But according to figures published by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on February 12th, at least 157 million birds have been affected by some form of H5HPA1 since January of 2022. According to data published by the USDA on February 12th, more than 23 million poultry birds living in commercial production or so-called backyard settings were affected by the disease in January. That number rose from more than 18 million in December of 2024 to about 7 million, or from about 7 million in November of 2024. So it's basically almost doubled, essentially, going up in just the last 3 years, or sorry, 3 months. So yeah, there you go. Now, the disease apparently is now being spread by a variety of mammals. Scientists are saying that at least 50 species can carry it, as well as birds, creating a much more difficult biosecurity challenge for egg farmers. Right now, avian influenza has spread to dairy cattle and is even infecting some humans who work closely with the animals. So, yeah. And just imagine Easter's coming up, folks. So here we go. We've got Easter coming up as well. So, anyway. They complain. They complain about all the wonderful things that are out there, and they complain about this. But yet it's the Biden administration who went through and actually did all that destruction of those birds, by the way. So, there you go. Coco D, insert your name here, also known as Coco de Whiskey, says, everyone paint potatoes this year. Yeah, that'd be kind of fun. I don't know if you could actually cook the potato afterward, but anyway. All right. So I've got a couple of maps here. I just want to show you because I don't think that anybody really understands the whole Ukraine-Russia war and the situation. But I got a map here that kind of illustrates the point. You got to understand, Trump is transactional. Trump is like, hey, we need to get this over with. We need to get this done. I think we can finish it, so on and so forth. But here's the deal. You're not going to be able to get back the land that was taken by Russia. And here is the reason why. So if you look at this map, you can kind of see there's a red section of what would essentially be Ukraine. They've got inserts, which you can sort of see. Let me see if I can zoom in on the inserts. So here is the insert of Ukraine prior to 2014. Okay. Then a little bit further down, there's Ukraine before 2022. Who was in charge in 2014? Who was in charge? Oh, wait a minute. That's that guy. What's his name? Oh, Barack Hussein Obama. That's right. And who was in charge in 2022? Oh, wait a minute. God, the guy's name is like right there on the tip of my tongue. Joseph Robinette Biden. Yep. So, here in the middle which let me go ahead and pull this out. Here in the middle is how Ukraine sits now. And the chances of them getting anything back, the Ukrainians getting anything back, I think is pretty slim. And I think that Zelensky has got to wake up to the fact that, yeah, this is, this is not going to happen. Russia is going to take it over. Now, one thing that these maps kind of point out is that there were, the Crimea was seized in 2014, and then Russian-backed separatists seized the area that's colored in dark red here at the top in 2022 or before 2022. So, I mean, come on. This is the situation. This is the area where they're just going to have to accept the fact that I think Ukraine's just going to have to accept the fact that they've lost this area. The lines have solidified, and it's time for us to move on. It's time for things to end. Ukraine is not going to get that land back. They're just not. And to realize what the eventuality is going to actually be. So anyway, we'll just have to kind of see how this works out. But again, like I said, I just wanted to show you this map. And for those who are on the audio portion of the program, you can go and check it out. And you should to take a look. You can check it out at rumble.com to kind of take a look at the map. Or you can just grab the Epic Times piece that I got it from. The link for it. Well, as we close down here on the American Perspective channel, I just want to play one more video for you. This was uncovered by Christopher Rufo, and I don't know. I can't figure this out. But here, this is based on the Department of Education. They apparently did some sort of funding to demonstrate or point that babies are racist. What? Anyway, take a listen. Oh, wait a minute. It's come on, where are you going? Here we go.
Demonstration of how racial awareness develops. According to research, 3-month-olds show a preference for looking at faces that are similar to the race they see most often. At 9 months, infants are unable to distinguish the facial features of racial groups other than their caregiver unless they frequently see images of racially diverse people. By the age of 2, children are putting people into categories based on race, and they are observing and internalizing power dynamics. At age 3, children develop biases and begin assigning meaning to race by attributing positive traits to the dominant race. However, children can still respond to positive messaging about their own and others' racial identities. By age 5, children of all races demonstrate social biases primarily by attributing negative traits to non-white races. At this age, children are capable of acting against racial injustice.
So, I don't know if anybody has ever watched babies, but babies in particular have a curiosity of their world around them. And so, yes, of course, they are going to identify with the people that they see most often, meaning their parents and other caregivers. So, of course, that's going to happen. But to attribute that to the idea that they're just automatically racist because of that is, in my opinion, just purely asinine. I can't understand why anybody would say that a baby is born racist. And to think that our Department of Education actually funded something like this, yeah, it needs to go. It needs to go. You want to look for race? You want to look for problems within race? Go ahead. Okay? Go ahead. Look for it. You're going to find it if you look for it every single time. But you don't have to. Anyway. All right, folks, that's it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. Once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button to make sure you get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up and like buttons across all of my outlets. And that's X, YouTube, Facebook, and, of course, the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.